All right, everybody, welcome to another episode of the Key to Games podcast here on Game Wisdom, where some of the art and science of games. We got a kind of packed week for our episode to talk about. We'll be going over two topics, but joining me, my co-host from Casual Game Studio, Joshua Reyes. How are you doing in this summer weather we're in?
I'm doing all right. I just got my flu shot a little bit ago, so it's starting to kick in. I'm starting to feel it. Other than that, regular game dev week. How are you doing, Josh?
I'm doing all right, trying to get the book all wrapped up for Souls Lakes. I have two more chapters of images to source. I'm going to be getting my COVID shot tomorrow, so I have about like a little under 24 hours to get all the images done before I am KO'd.
Yeah, gotta speed run it, man. Gotta speed run it. I'm gonna be getting mine next week. You're getting the which one? The Moderna this time?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm hoping it won't like destroy me for 24 hours like the other ones did, but
yeah,
who knows?
Yeah, they don't hit me like a ton of bricks, man. Yeah.
But we have certainly some very interesting things to discuss this week.
Yeah.
We'll be talking about our thoughts on the Game Wisdom Game Jam later today, but a little bit of a news story popped up this week. Nothing too traumatically bad at all. That it, like, and ultimately it was kind of like speed running like the collapse of a company, it seems.
Yeah, pretty much.
So, I will, since you are the developer and you are more accustomed to game engines than I am, I'm going to let you kind of give everyone the good news about what happened this week.
I'm sure everybody has a little bit of idea, but we'll go over it. Basically, I think we're going on 3 days now. Unity basically announced that they're going to have a runtime install fee, and basically it's 20 cents per install, right? And you have to get I think it's over, they're changing the figures here and there, over 200k, so many installs, etc. But it really seems to be targeted at free to play and live games. But the thing is because that's basically where their bread is buttered right now. But the thing is how it's going to affect every other dev is major and huge, right? And regardless of whether they walk it back or not, this is a major breach of trust from a company, right? There's really, even if they walk it back 100%, even if they even if the CEO steps down, he's like, you know what, I didn't know what I'm doing. I don't think that anybody will really be able to trust Unity again. That they won't pull this again. And there's some things that are embedded into this, right? If we look back on the timeline here, there was the Iron Source acquisition, right? And we had a podcast where we talked about that, spyware, some things just some nefarious things that they're a part of, right? Shortly after that, they laid off 900 people, right? 300 in one office, I think 600 in another. Then a little bit after that, Rick, what's his name?
John Riccatello?
Yeah, John Riccatello, sorry. He sold 50k shares of his stock, right? So this was shortly before they announced it, and then they did announce it, right? After that, then they deleted the GitHub terms of service, right? So anything that you could read and keep track of their terms of service, that's gone and deleted now, right? After that, they had 2 office closures due to death threats, which after investigation ended up being internal, right? I think it was one of the workers there. And so there's just a lot of chaos inside the offices. Basically people are saying, the ones who care deeply about it are now leaving. And the really sad part about all of this, though, is that there really is no replacement for Unity where it stands, right? Unity, literally, if I go to the Wikipedia, when they launched in 2005, they were aiming to democratize game development, right? Make it available to everyone so everybody could use it. So that was their original vision. The original guy that was a part of Unity, now he's fighting climate change. He's doing some other good stuff, right? But after that, the company, of course, was taken over by sharks, right? And like, if you really look at the way that the company is run and the way it does, it's really hard to bring in money, right? When it comes down to the brass tacks. So when you have the board members come in and they're like, "Hey, what are you doing? You're just giving this free software away. You're not making any money. What's going on, right?" And so, of course, it's not going to be sustainable because now they are public. Like vice versa, if you take a look at Unreal, they are private still, right? And they literally, Unreal was made to make games. Unity was not made to make games. Like, I think when it started, like, it started with some very rudimentary stuff, I think, in Unity 1.0, but they had a different vision back in the day. And eventually it started becoming more of a game engine. But Unreal was originally developed to make games, right? And so they make profit from, for example, Fortnite, while Unity does not. So that's kind of like the crux of it, right? But instead of like maybe investing in their company and investing in studios or something like that to try and get games and trying to get other revenue, they're taking it out of the only people that do pay, which is the developers, right, Josh? So that's the long and short of it right now, you know?
And there's certainly a lot to unpack about this.
Yeah.
Like you said, the original kind of tweet announcement was per install, which in of itself is just a colossally stupid thing to try and gouge people money on, then turn into your first installation of a game. But as you said, it definitely felt like it was being targeted towards like anything that was free to play. But
yeah,
the problem, as we've said, is that this is trying to basically take more money out of developers. Like, the consumer is not being affected by this. Again, the consumer shouldn't be affected by, you know, what's going on with the game engine, at least along these lines.
Correct.
And the problem, what we see here, and you made a really good point, that Unity is a publicly traded company. And the problem with this, with like having people like John Riccatello, Bobby Kotick from Activision, is that video games and like game dev in general, it's not an infinitely revenue-driven market.
Right.
And this is something I was saying about doing in a critical fall, but since we're talking about here, I can kind of put that into this.
Sure.
That when we look at video games and the market in general, there is a finite number of people who will buy a video game, or they'll, you know, use an engine or use any kind of software. You can't get more money if the consumer base or the install base is not growing. So the only option you have is, of course, you need to get more money from the people who are already a part of this. If you have 1,000 people paying $10 a month, that's $10,000 a month of revenue. Well, if I make things harder, or if I raise my fee to $20 a month, hey, I just double my profit.
Right.
But there is a limit on how far you can do that. And one of the major like painful lessons I think companies are learning is that none of them are really irreplaceable. If, you know, Unity screws up, we have Unreal, Godot, GDevelop, we have many more. I mean, Godot this week, or Godot, is having probably like the best week of their lives. Like,
one of the tweets was like, "Thank you, Unity, for the free marketing." Like,
yeah. I mean, this is like up there with, you know, Diablo 3 failing and Path of Exile just, you know, like gently grabbing the ball and like scoring 10 touchdowns back in 2014.
Right. I've literally on Twitter, I literally have never seen such interest in Godot and on Unreal. Like, people just interested in both of the engines. And I think it was like the day before Godot received that funding. I can't remember what funding they got, but they got a massive funding. Yeah. So,
and a Humble bundle the day after announced that they put out a new bundle, I think, featuring like Unreal tutorials. Which again, we don't know if that was actually planned or they just decided to change it.
Happenstance, right?
But to get back to the point, the issue that like kind of like when we see like this kind of business mindset get brought into the game industry is that it doesn't work out when it comes to games. When people think about the game industry, I'm going to look this up really fast. How much money did the game industry make? Let's see. In 2022, Let's see, it says that it made about $183 billion in 2022. Which I'm sure every developer watching this, you all got at least a few million of that, right?
A little bit of it, yeah. Definitely. And gotta keep gassing the yacht, Josh.
Exactly. You gotta get to your private island.
Yeah.
And people think that when we hear numbers like that it means every video game or every major game can keep earning money. But it doesn't work like that. There is always a finite number of people who are willing to buy any game. Even stuff like Call of Duty, Fortnite, Mario, Zelda, whatever, that number is not infinite. They make lots and lots of money, obviously, but it's not a case where you can say, well, Super Mario Odyssey sold 1.2 million copies this year. And again, I'm sure I'm unlowballing that number. Next year, they'll sell 3.5 million. It doesn't work like that. And something that I was thinking about this, like, me and I have had these discussions in the past about how much the free-to-play live service market was really tainted by the likes of Zynga, King, EA back in the 2010s.
Yeah.
And a big part of that was how a lot of companies sought executives and people out of the gaming industry or the casino industry. And again, there's that mindset when we talk about like publicly traded companies, investors, shareholders, and so on, that profits have to keep going up. Now, that can work in a consumer industry where, there's always new people coming to buy a new car, or see a new movie. But in the video game industry, especially when we talk about game dev tools, it's not like every year we get 500,000 new game devs. Which, just imagine if every year the number of indie games grows multiplicatively. We were talking about idle design this past week. Maybe next year I'll have 10 to the 5th power of Bullet Heaven games to cover by 2024.
It's like Moore's Law of video games. Wow.
And when we see like these decisions come from people like John Riccitiello, again, Activision's Bobby Kotick, and so on, they're not making it to make the business better or to make their brand or their software or their services better. They're making it to appease their shareholders.
Yes.
And it's kind of like that case of these two things are just not working together. You can't have something that is for developers, for people who play video games, and keep the your shareholders happy and keep earning money.
It's literally an oxymoron in this in this field, and like you said, it's completely different and implying like trying to apply the rules of like typical finances or other things to game development just doesn't work. It's like against the consumer, against the dev. It's like anti everything and only pro shareholders, right? And it just doesn't work like that. And
and this goes back to that video I made about kind of the video game unicorns of Baldur's Gate and Elden Ring, that I'm sure there's an executive or a publisher somewhere thinking, well, if Larian Studios has this many people, and we have, 2-3 times that amount, we could make Baldur's Gate 4, half the time with a team that's never worked on before. Why can't we get them to do it? Because again, all game dev is interchangeable. Right. Again, like Unity would have solved their financial problems if they would have just inserted that make game button feature that we talk about. See, we could have saved Unity if they would have just listened to all of our discussions.
Yeah. I think it was just a few episodes back, too, before they did this. So we tried to save them in time.
And they just didn't listen. Again, all they needed was that ad fishing minigame button that would have earned them like $10 trillion right there.
Right, definitely.
And when we look at, like, as you said earlier, like, it's phenomenal in terms of the reception that it has gotten. Like, people, I think one of my favorite jokes is like, Unity has really brought Unity. Everyone now hates them.
Yeah.
And it is really one of like those speed runs to collapse that we've seen. And it's kind of up there with, Twitter being rebranded to X that has happened this year as well.
We still call Twitter to this day.
Mm-hmm. And when we talk about the fallout of this is like the big thing, because again, this story is maybe 4 days old, maybe 3 or 4 days old at the time of us recording this. We haven't really seen like the full repercussions of what this is going to mean.
Right now, everybody's just running, screaming, everything's just on fire, and the dust has not settled. We're not sure because I'm 80% sure they're going to walk back something, change something, right? I'm not sure they're going to remove, because when it all comes down to it, they've already told their shareholders they're going to get money somehow, right? So that they were number crunching away to get money, because they've been, let me see here, they lost so much money this year. Let me get the finances up. It was Yahoo Finance. Oh no, I lost it. Okay, we're just going to say they lost about 138 billion or something. So they were just bleeding money, right? And so after they took over, they were just number crunching to find a way to do it. And like we said, only one is their current paying customers as the devs, right? So.
Yep, and again, there is only, when we talk about specialty software like this, there is a limit on how much money these things can pull in. And when we talk about, again, the early to mid 2010s was a really rough time for live service. Because people, again, we can even see this or draw those parallels to the whole NFT craze. Has everyone forgotten what NFTs were? It was the thing we couldn't stop talking about a year ago, and now it's all but dried up. But so many people who want big money and all that were chasing after NFTs just as they were chasing after live service. Again, EA was really getting into the live service back in 2010, 2011. Everyone remembers that horrible Dungeon Keeper game, what happened with Plants vs. Zombies on mobile. And again, it was this idea of, why can't we just keep earning infinite money on our games? Why do we have to end the game? Or why can't people just keep paying into it?
Right.
And like we said, the industry is a circle. We saw the same thing happen with the MMO bus in the mid-2000s. Everyone thought, well, if World of Warcraft is earning all this money every month, why can't we do that with our game? And we'll just rush something out. And it doesn't work that way. And one of the biggest aspects of this is just how much brand loyalty has been thrown to the fire between Twitter and Unity this year. Because like you said, they've walked back this, and some people have said, is this their stupid strategy of, they'll announce something horrible and then they'll walk it back and then do what they really wanted to. But the thing is, that never works out, especially when you're dealing with something that is a tool that people are expected to use day in and day out. How would you feel if, one day you take a hammer out and it just explodes in your hand?
Yeah, the Unity devs that have used it. I left Unity maybe 2017, or maybe 2018. So I left it a while back ago, but the devs that have stayed with it, they're so passionate about it, and they love the Unity engine. It's for all of its faults, which it has many, a multitude of failings and faults, but for where it fits in and what it allows indie devs to do, it fills it in perfectly. It's road tested. You can get it to consoles. You can get it. It just works, right? And the thing with currently, which we don't have, with Godot, you can't. It doesn't really have mobile support, I think, fully yet, and or even console support yet. So those things would have to be brought up and tested for, and to get going. But I don't see that being a barrier now after their funding, right? They're definitely going to get there now that Unity has basically said, hey, here we go. And so now everybody else is kind of free to jump in. Like you were saying, the Diablo 3 thing happened. Well, someone else is going to jump in, right? And so sadly, currently right now, even if they don't roll it back, there's no option for Unity to fit in. You can go to Unreal, right? But it's a completely different beast, right? I highly recommend Unreal. But if you're making a 2D game or something like that, Unity was really the place to be, right? Unity did not have the best 3D rendering engine, but you could do some really nice stylistic stuff with it, right? You've seen some really beautiful, interesting games with Unity because the way that the shaders were allowed to be programmed in that game. and compared to like Unreal shaders, which are a little bit different. I think you've mentioned like some of the sameness of the games in Unreal, and that's just due to the complexity of like customizing the shaders of the game. And the shaders of Unity are a bit easier to deal with for like stylized games or just different types of stuff. So just sadly, again, the niche that Unity fills will be empty until someone fully steps up, right? But someone will step up, though.
Mm-hmm. And they always do. That's
always
kind of how this works. And we've seen this time after time again in any industry, that when one of the big guys fails, there's a lot of people who are given that chance. Again, we're seeing that with, Blue Sky co-host Mastodon, and who knows how many other Twitter likes are coming around right now.
I would bet you Epic would invest in Godot right now. Just, they invested in Blender, invest in it. Godot will have so many people invested in Godot just to have another a fully open source. I think it's open source. I don't want to, but another engine out there. Let's double check. Not sure.
Mm-hmm. And it is again going to be one of these situations where
free and open source.
It was just such a self-inflicted wound. We've talked about how some studios become too big to fail. Yeah. And I mean, from the outside, that's what it seemed like with Unity. But again, as people have been reporting, it's been losing a lot of money. They made a lot of questionable decisions. I believe at one point, I think they were selling data or something, like the U.S. military, if I remember.
Yes. Yeah, they did. I tried to get everything down that they've been doing for a while. And I think since around when I left, I can't remember what they did in 2017, but I was like, I do this. And I wanted to venture into 3D games, and it wasn't as powerful. But back then, they were making some questionable decisions, and I was playing for the professional license, which I believe was $1,500 a seat, $1,500 a seat at the time for a year. So each year I had to pay them that fee. But still, my games, I think, would be susceptible to the runtime fee, even if they haven't reached the benchmark. I'm not sure, but they would still be susceptible, I believe. I'm not sure. It's so the wording's so vague. But again, it's just a completely self-inflicted wound. They could have taken a completely different way to do this instead of what they did.
Yep. And targeting the developers is never what you want to do in situations like this. And again, it's one of those cases where else could they have possibly gone? Again, Unity is not a consumer product. It is a very specialized tool. So there's only a limited number of people on this planet who would use that tool.
Yep.
And again, it goes back to the issues of when you become a publicly traded company. Again, people view, shareholders and people view that the revenue needs to keep going up. It can't just stay stable. And sure as heck, it can't go down. But some things are just not meant to just keep going.
Yeah. That they have a cap, and that's it, and that's where it stays. I mean, going after the devs like they have is just so against what Unity used to stand for, and it's just so odd to see. But again, when the sharks come in, and this is what happens. I'm trying to find some more information about the live service stuff here. I had it. Anyway, go ahead, Josh.
And as we've seen, the other unintended consequence of this is all the education and all the educators who have used Unity, have free Unity courses, use Unity in their classrooms. And this is again why we see such a outcry about this. Anything that affects a core tool like this, it affects everyone who is trying to make use of that. And again, it affects people who, maybe a student who just wants to try and mess with Unity for a little bit. What about a teacher? Imagine a teacher who has copies or installs it all on multiple computers, and people are making demos and builds and doing stuff like that. And
They use Unity also like a ton for like research and like medical research and stuff like that. Like Unity is used everywhere just because of its compact size and the ability to easy to learn it. So the ramifications are massive of the amount of people that do use it. And really quick before I got to your point, I mean, like the market, like where Unity's at, was basically probably going to be its cap, right? Because the only other way would be to have unlimited time and unlimited people at the same time, right? Just ever increasing people, ever increasing time, and that's the only way they increase the revenue. Because a software like this, where you said there's only so many amount of people in the world that will use it, that's it. You cannot get more money out of it that way. They'd have to find revenue, just like how Unreal Engine did, and like they're remaining private, right?
So. And like to like those ramifications, one of the things that people are saying is like it seems like John Riccitiello and the people who made this decision, they weren't even thinking about all the use cases that Unity has. They were just thinking about, well, a game like Genshin Impact or any live service free-to-play game is earning, all this money, and there's no, kickback for us. Or one of the arguments someone was saying was, well, this will be something that will only charge like Microsoft or Sony if it's on like a Games Pass kind of thing. And yeah, that's not going to happen either. And again, it's one of those cases of where was like where did like the thought process go in terms of how many things would have been affected by this?
Right. It was literally, I think the only thought process was like within the boardroom with accountants figuring out where we can generate money from, and literally not caring about the developers or the ramifications, because the only thing they are serving is the board, right? And that's it, the shareholders, and that's it. And I think that's the only people that were of concern, because if you legitimately took a step back and looked at the ramifications of this, you would know you're burning your company to the ground. So that makes you wonder, okay, are they trying to burn the company to the ground? And that's the question, right? Like, it is literally John Riccitiello. What's his name? Is it Rick? I keep saying the wrong name.
It's Riccitiello.
Yeah. That guy, the current CEO. Did he take a look at it and he said, you know what? This company cannot make any more money. We went public. They're public. We can't make any more money. The only other option is to get as much as we can now, extract everything we can out now and down. I mean, is that not a viable option? Sure. Could be.
And again, it's that kind of short-term profit for like long-term slash and burn. And it's why a lot of people, when they hear that any kind of studio gets, bought by a publisher or becomes publicly traded, it's oftentimes where we all have like that doom and gloom, because eventually, even if that studio is doing well right now, eventually those shareholders will come for their money. I mean, look at what has happened with Blizzard over the past 20 years. They've gone from, again, being one of the top studios on the planet to now people like don't even view them as, being excited about their games anymore.
No, not at all. I don't think I've been excited for one of their games in a long time. And then, of course, everything, everything that's been done in the background of the studio, definitely.
And there's no easy way, I think, to solve some of these issues. Oh, and of course, just never become publicly traded. I think that may be
right. I mean, like how Unreal not publicly traded, and they're able to make their own thing. Once you become publicly traded, then you're beholden, right? And then you're no longer. I'm not sure when Unity went public. I think that's probably around the time I left. Is probably when they went public, but once they go public, then it's like, okay, what are your reasons for going public, Unity, right? Is it because you think you need more money for the engine? Or is it because you just desire more to create more money, right? To get more money? Because before that, Unity was doing fine and they were moving along and didn't see that they needed a massive influx of money to keep creating the engine to keep going how it was. So yeah, so the reason to go public, of course, is like, why did they do that? And I think that that's some insight.
Yeah. According to news reports, they went public in 2020.
Okay, 2020. Yeah.
Yep, and like to your point there, it's that situation of, was the money going to be used to make the engine better, to provide more services?
Right.
Or was it used just to get more money, to have more money?
More money. Yeah.
And again, we could get into the whole, horrors of capitalism. We can turn that, we can do that as another topic here. And people who kind of chase after that amount of money are not really caring about the quality of the product. They're not caring about where this company is going to be 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the line. And it's, again, the complete antithesis of what we talk about when we discuss indie developers and just, game dev in general. That the goal, or your major goal of being a game developer, is to become sustainable. If you're thinking that your next game is just going to automatically guarantee you $20 million, that's probably not going to happen. You need to be thinking, again, like as we talk about with developers like Jay Burgett, about how do you keep going under the assumption that your next game isn't going to be the next Fortnite or the next Minecraft or Factorio. And that's not what a shareholder wants to hear. They don't want to hear, well, my games or my studio will still be around in 10, 15 years making this amount of money. They want to hear, well, we're going to make, $10 billion this next year, and then, who cares after that?
Right, exactly.
So we've been profitable for 1 month ever. And again, it's that case of, what are they expecting out of that, out in terms of profit? Again, we're talking about something that is a very limited use tool, is not really something for like mass consumers, even though, again, more people are using it and learning it. And that's where, again, the brand loyalty and the brand awareness comes from. Like we've said, over the past 10 years, how many video games have been made in Unity? How many times have we seen that made in Unity, a splash screen, under games, whether they are massive studios or from just a 2-person team? And that's, again, where, as we've said before, like, brand equity is one of the things that you can't really put, like, a dollar sign on. The fact that everyone associates Twitter as an adjective. The fact that Unity was one of the... Again, like, if we were to talk to people, like, a year or two ago, how many people would be talking about Godot?
Yeah.
Maybe they'll bring up, like, Unreal... But again, it was basically, hey, if you want to get into game dev,
Unity.
Use a free engine right here with all the tools, people. And think about this for a second. How many educators, video tutorial makers, authors, anyone who's made like a tutorial or classes or whatever to teach people Unity, they're in trouble now too.
Yeah, definitely. So many content creators, people who created everything. Like I said, there's people like who have been doing everything around. Like when there's a game engine, I mean, you have tutorial makers, content creators, just like you name it, teachers in medical field, the education, and just the massive ramifications of this are just insane, man. And
it is go ahead, finish your...
No, go ahead.
I was gonna say, like, this is like one of the horror things that we talk about, and I said this in my library talk I gave the other day, that you can have like some completely unrelated thing to you that you have never thought about, never been a part of, just like come in and just wreck what you've been doing, like just like a meteor from outer space. And like we've said, like this is still very much related to Twitter. Like for the two of us and for any developers, Twitter going down has been horrible for
really bad.
The little guys.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing. And the thing with Unity is that they were only thinking about, again, the developers have been making hundreds of millions of dollars. The free-to-play people, they're thinking about getting Microsoft money or PSN. Oh yeah, I would love for Unity to try and go after Nintendo, because I'm sure Nintendo would just laugh them off in terms of, oh, you want to show money for indie games? Oh no, we'll just release another Mario game.
That's right.
And incidentally, just announced they just had their Nintendo Direct.
Direct Paper Mario. Yeah.
And Super Mario RPG remake.
Yeah.
And now we're going to Nintendo. Let's do a Nintendo Direct coverage on this episode too. But again, it's that case of the people that they were thinking were going to pay. No, they would never pay for that. And again, it's a very painful lesson. And even it's something that indie developers or even studios, they're saying your game is not irreplaceable. If you screw up, if you ruin your game, or if you do something horrible, a lot of people aren't going to say, well, these people are horrible, but I'm going to still play their game anyway. No, there's, again, how many games have I played this year that have been released?
This week, Josh?
Yeah. Nothing is irreplaceable when it comes to the game industry. And again, gamers and people in the industry, as people are sneezing, I must have said something right there, that anything that is, when you piss off a gamer or a game dev, guess what? They will go and make their own tool, or they will come up with a solution out of spite.
Exactly. And that's like when we go back to that, the trust that they broke. Regardless of where it ends up when the dust settles, now you know what Unity can do or will do. Yeah. And so why would I want to keep putting my chips in with Unity instead of going with something else, right? And that's basically where it's at.
And don't forget about the Dungeons and Dragons debacle that happened last year.
Yeah.
You're saying, well, okay, there you go.
Okay.
Yeah. Again, like people, once again, Wizards of the Coast. I think they're the one who own.
Wizards of the Coast.
I always because they also own Magic too, and Magic also had that trouble as well. That they wanted to earn money off of people making unlicensed or custom campaigns on their D&D modules and the D&D books, and
so they did the same thing, right? They retroactively changed the license, right? Yeah,
and. That, and as you said earlier, they removed the whole GitHub of, the terms of service. People, again, that's how I know that the executives and the people are not the brightest. Because if you think that you can take something off the internet, someone had that downloaded and saved somewhere, and they will post it everywhere.
Oh, yeah. It was on GitHub. So.
Yeah. And, to go back to the Dungeons and Dragons issue and stuff like that, there, again, it's that kind of chase for more money. And like we've said, is this money going towards the quality of the product? Is it going to pay the writers and designers and artists more money? No. That money is going in the pockets of the shareholders, of the people who paid for this, who demanded they want more and more money. But again, no matter how great something is, no matter how popular, Game of the Year winning, whatever, it's still a finite number of consumers. And again, how do you expect a game to be earning or continually bringing in more revenue week after week, month after month, year after year? Eventually, everyone who's going to play that game has played that game.
Played it. That's right. They've already played it. It's done. I mean, no game can be played forever. And in the current environment we're in, I mean, there's so many things vying for people's time and attention, not just video games, right? And so you have video games that, they're really, this is really at the service game where they're trying to get it. But again, there is a limited cap on that also, right? There's just a limited cap on all these things that they're trying to extract from. Again, this is just a cash and grab and get out and down. Because like you said, none of these decisions were smart that they've made, and it surely show that they do not care for the developers.
And here's something that we didn't bring in yet, but this was something that a lot of developers brought up, which is also very bad. if they charge per install, no matter what that install is,
yes,
how many people can screw with a studio
yeah,
by saying, well, I hate you, so install,
boom,
uninstall, install, uninstall.
install,
And,
yeah.
you know, if a few 50,000 people do that a few times, guess what? They'll hit that 200,000 or, you know, the alleged number very fast.
Oh, but you know what? You want to get even darker because it's a runtime fee also. So it's like playtime, right? So
God.
yes. So you can, people were talking about having multiple instances running while also downloading and installing. Like, I mean, these guys have it all set up already. These guys and gals, how to, it's just so my mic's going out. Everything is just anti-dev here on this part.
And again, like, we are even seeing this at like the low level review bombings of games. Now you can not only can you ruin a developer's Metacritic and user review score, now you can bankrupt them at the same time. All from the comfort of your home. Don't you just love, as a developer, don't you just love that?
I love that. Yeah, we love that so much. I mean, you know, like, and this field is so like already, you know what? Like a side tangent, like this is kind of a canary. I think this is another canary for, you know, the industry, right? Of like, I don't know who the canary is for, but the canary is for someone to see like where the market stands in video games, and like it's not infinite money, right? It's not infinite growth. There is eventually you can only make so much. The studio will only make this much money. That's it. This game will only make this much money. That's it. And you can't expect more. Go ahead.
Yep, you can't expect, again, your consumer base to keep growing. It's not, and as we said, a video game is a singular purchase. No matter how much you want to try and spend it, we're seeing again this push to raise the MSRP to, I think we're at $79 for a AAA game now. And I can tell everyone watching this, I am not spending $79 on a single game for a very long time.
I was hearing 150 for some AAA games like GTA. I think GTA 6. I think they were going at around 150. If anybody in chat knows.
And the new Mortal Kombat, the regular price is $70, and then the premium edition is $110.
There we go. Yeah, so 110, right?
Oh my! And we need to. Maybe we should get like Rami or Seth on, because I want to rant about the whole idea of like paying for early access to play a game.
Right.
Because again, as someone with 80 games right now having to play, I am in no rush to start your game 3 days early.
Yeah, no.
And like we've said, the ramifications for this, like going back to what you were saying a few minutes ago, once you break that trust, that's it. Like, that is how entire brands die.
Yeah.
And again, it's one of those cases where so much of what this is going to change, we really don't know. Like, again, like, this is probably going to be the greatest week of Godot's lives as a company.
Definitely. This is their time to shine for sure. I was seeing tweets about like their 3D renderer, about the scripting and tutorials of how to convert over from Unity, all kind of stuff. Yeah.
I mean, if anyone right now, there's probably a gold rush of people doing like Unity to Godot comparisons, or how to get started on that.
Those things are going to get so many views. Yeah, for sure. For sure.
Again, here's our $1 billion idea. Just put on Godot a instant transfer from Unity to Godot button. Just put that in, you hit the button. You're
rich.
We're done.
Yeah, so if you're in here, if you're watching this, make that, you'll be rich. And then buy a couple books.
Yep. And to your point about kind of like the canary in the coal mine situation, I think one of the things we may be seeing more of is more, I guess, like developer-run tools and services. Because you can't trust a shareholder to keep something functional
Yeah.
Day after day, year after year. I mean, look at Itch. Itch was developed basically as a way to say it's a store by developers for developers.
Hmm.
And who knows where that's going to be. Again, like, I'm sure if ever Steam gets hurt really bad or they commit like an issue like this with Unity, I'm sure Itch would be there to,
Oh yeah.
wave the signal flares and say, hey, look at us, we're right over here. Because,
Right.
again, it's that situation that everyone needs to understand. No service, no software is irreplaceable. No matter what, this is the kind of stuff that any studio can do. But the reason why they don't always compete is, again, you can't compete if the big dog is 100%
Yeah.
powerful.
That's
No
right.
one, we've seen this with Uplay, with Origin. What was that one? The Gamefly. No, was it the Gamefly one? The other, like,
Gamefly.
there was like a digital store that was trying to do, like, back in like the mid 2000s, whose name I don't remember. But again, they all failed or they never reached that level because, again, Steam has never made a mistake at this
Right.
level.
Right.
And
Yeah.
if you think that you can just come around and say, well, we're just going to do Steam but better, or Unreal but better, or so on, until those companies are failing, no one is going to move over. And again, this goes back to the point of brand loyalty and brand equity. How many developers right now have switched to Godot, or they're learning Unreal tutorials
Yeah.
over the past 48 to 72 hours?
Yeah. Big time. That's all I've seen. Only activity people you're like unbelievable amount of traffic on that. It's crazy. And it's good to see, but it's also very sad to see, right?
Again, like when we talk about studios like Unity, like Twitter, or like Dungeons and Dragons or Wizards of the Coast, these are like established franchises. These are multi-billion-dollar companies in terms of what they bring and their recognition. Again, you cannot buy recognition in
No.
any industry. It comes with creating a good product, with trust, with building that brand loyalty. And to throw all that out, it creates these vacuums. And yes, they'll get filled maybe months, maybe years. But the sad part, and like we've said, is that how many developers are just, caught in this tailspin right now?
Yeah.
How many educators and doctors and, students who want to try and learn this? It's, again, one of those very big risks. And I think
devs that are just about to release their game. They're almost done and they're just about to release it. And then they announce that
yeah. If you're in like the 4th year of a 5-year dev cycle, I bet you're really having a great week right now. And it's this, like, I was thinking about this with esports. That, again, like, so much of esports is caught between, this immeasurable, like, entity of what happens if that studio decides to turn their game off. What if the studio gets bought and, sponsors or shareholders decide to make that horrible?
Yeah.
Again, it not only affects the developers and the people working on that game, it affects everyone who's covering it, all the players, all the schools and colleges and so on who have invested in this. And again, what is going to happen to all those schools that have invested in Unity courses and Unity programs?
Yeah. I mean, I think almost every day I see, come learn Unity at this school. Like it's just so embedded. I mean, Unity is quite old now. We're going on around 2005. So 2005, it's been working its ways into the game development world, and so it's really entrenched by now, and that's because like when it came out, it was how it was set up to democratize game development for everyone. It was supposed to allow anyone who wanted to make a game to be able to make a game, basically, right?
Mm-hmm. And again, like, that is a really great tagline to get people to try out your product. here's something that can allow anyone to make a game. It's why, again, how many years have we had like those best, games made in X engine showcase? Because this is how you get people to try this stuff out.
Yeah.
I said this in my presentation that, like 3 months ago when I gave this presentation, it was an easy recommendation. Here's Unity. It's free. It's powerful. You can do whatever you want with it. They only charge you if you're intending to sell with it. Which, again, that's kind of what we expect out of a game engine. That if you're making a profit, yes, they'll earn some proceeds off of that.
Exactly.
But asking people to pay you on the account just downloading, don't forget they were originally going to say it was going to be on demos, too. Imagine the whole demo thing going through.
Right.
Hey, Unearth, and how are you doing?
Welcome, Unearth. Yeah.
And again, like, we've seen this situation time and time again with studios trying to monetize free elements of things. Whether it's, Bethesda trying to monetize mods at a time. Again, don't forget, I haven't brought this up yet, the whole notion of fun pain from mobile and live service. We can make the game worse and convince people to spend more money.
Right.
Anything that is anti-consumer, anti-developer, these things do not they don't go over well with the people. And like we said, nothing is irreplaceable.
Not at all, Josh. The only thing is, really sad part is that this is happening, because just when we were talking about what game industry in a few podcasts back, before the game jam, it was like pretty much, okay, if you're doing this, Unreal, if you're doing this, Unity, right? It's like really simple if you want to get a little, try out Godot or do something else, but it was really Unity. Like for students, Unity, and then you want to do maybe a 3D, you want to check out Unreal. So it wasn't so difficult to do, but now there's going to be kind of a little bit of a dearth, or an absence for a little bit until someone steps up. So we'll see once the dust settles where it will be. But again, this is just like a major, huge upset to the game development community. It really was like Unity and Unreal, and those were our two game engines. And now basically that one that we never be the same again. It has totally destroyed the trust. And if they can, like I said, no matter what, if they roll it back, whatever they do, they can do this, they can do something else, right? They can do something even more sinister, even more. Oh, we won't do that, but then what they end up doing is even more sinister. They can do something way worse, or they're just burning it down, right? Or that's another way to look at it. Taking the cash now, profit now, burn it down later, is what they could be doing, and not really concerned with the company or the developers at all. But again, like we said, of course, the bright spot is that there will be someone to take their place. Diablo 3 failed. Path of Exile came in. Unity failed. Godot is going to come in. Our Unreal is going to come in, and there will be something else there. But just sadly, the niche that Unity filled will be missed, is all I can say.
Yep. And where this is going to end up for developers, again, the sheer number of developers who have, put out sworn statements about how much this is a horrible idea. We saw Mega Crit with Slay the Spire, Red Hook,
Cult of Lamb.
Again, and don't forget, those developers have their own loyalty with their consumers. So now all the consumers get to hear that Unity is being bad to their favorite studio.
Right. It's like a double whammy for Unity. I mean, this is just bad press overall. I mean, literally everybody, Moist Critical, so many people are covering it around the game area that don't usually talk about get deep into it, but they're covering this because they know how big of an issue this is for developers, right? So yeah, it's big, and the amount of just brand burn that they're going through is just, it's insane that like they're burning it down. And hopefully we'll know something soon, maybe next week we'll see what they're going to do or going to change. But again, like the damage has been done now, right? Like you really can't go back from this, right? And what I've been seeing, sentiment from all the developers has been both, right? Has been that we can't trust Unity ever again. And this is devs, their games big studios, and they're like, we're going to be switching or porting over or seeing what we could do. The thing that they, when I'm thinking about what they could have done, right, is that if they were trying to extract more money, right, and they're like, where can we get more money from the finite amount of devs, that there's only so many devs working on Unity. It would be to, maybe, change some, because like I was saying, I was paying $1,500 for a year for Pro Seat, and like, I don't know, raise it up to $2,000 if you want, right? $500 extra or something like that. But like, they're really going hard instead of like going the right way. Like they're trying to extract as much money as possible. And so when they were number crunching, they knew that this was the way to get the most money as possible from the free to play and live service games, and every other developer. So.
Mm-hmm. Yep, and like to working with UE5 or Unreal Engine 5, again, it's that case that, and there's people who don't really care about, because they're already on Unreal, they're already on Godot or GDevelop or RPG Maker. But again,
right, I'm on Unreal, so I'm not affected.
Yeah. And yeah, to Mike's point, when you're dependent on a third-party platform or third-party tool, if something happens to that, it affects your livelihood. And for a lot of people, it's not a case where you don't really have another option. If you're in a 5-year dev cycle working on Unity right now, it's not going to be very easy for you just to swap everything over. I know New Blood was even talking about this, with swapping and looking into other engines, and that's the other like very fun, I should put air quotes there, fun point about this. It's got a lot of developers to start looking at using Godot or using Unreal,
yeah.
And like you said, even if it didn't affect you personally, or even if you were fine, to some extent, it now puts that thought in your back of your mind. Well, how are they going to stab me in the back in next month or next year?
Right. So yeah, you're just waiting for now. If oh my gosh, I'm still like, I would be horrified if I was working on a 4-year title and in Unity right now, because like the idea of like taking a game that you've been working on for and porting it over, like it won't just port over to Unreal, right? Like that, I don't even know, like you'd be talking years to even learn Unreal, and then how, unless you is it that time when the mic is dropping out?
A little bit.
It gets too hot. Yeah, I mean, I forgot what I was saying there, Josh. You go ahead.
Let's see. Yeah. And to Unearth, it is that very sad thing that it doesn't just affect Unity, it affects everyone that's tied to it in some way, shape, or form. And losing an option is never a good thing when it comes to avoiding monopolies and keeping competition going. And even with like Unreal, I'm curious how they're going to respond to this, other than they put out more tutorials for it.
Yeah, they're just putting out tutorials. They're like, here, you don't even have to use a screen with us, and tweets like that, and just tons of its tutorials.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's time to wake up everyone to the fact that commercial game engines are games.
Mm-hmm. And then there's people just say, well, just go make your own game engine.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not going to happen. Like, that's not going to
No.
become the norm. And it
No.
shouldn't have to become the norm. We need to have, again, engines that are available for everyone. Because that's
Exactly.
how we get more people into this industry.
Yep.
And it's why, again, that the smart decision was to make the engines, well, most of them, to be, download for free. Because
Yep.
that's how you build an install base. Is
Exactly.
everyone who downloads Unity, Unreal, whatever, going to be earning them money? No.
Nope.
But when you get that one person who, let's say, makes the next Vampire Survivors, or the next Fortnite, or Minecraft, that's where, again, not only does the money come in from, the revenue, or, the revenue sharing off of that, but again, it comes with the brand recognition. Hey,
Yep.
so-and-so made this amazing game in Unreal. Well, why don't we go to Unreal? Or why don't we go to Unity?
Exactly. Yeah, just like you were saying, you get those big reels of best games made in Unreal, best games made in Unity, and it's just more cachet for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, what was made in oh my gosh, the list of games. I mean, Cuphead, Beat Saber, and Unity. Cuphead, Beat Saber, Pokemon Go. I mean, just literally like, I don't know, 40-50% of games, I guess, that have been released have been, in Unity. Maybe look into it, but because Unity was so available for everybody and the pricing was so low, right? Until you hit that rev share limit, um, it was so easy to get into. Download it, start making your game, put it out there.
Mm-hmm. And again, without having these easy to access tools, it really, part of what made the indie space blow up over the past 10 years has been the rise of public game engines, powerful engines. Being able to do stuff that 20 years ago, it would have taken teams of dozens of people, hundreds of thousands of dollars to make.
Yeah. It just would not have been possible. Like the games that have been produced without these engines available the way they are, just none of this would have been possible, right? I mean, when I was trying to develop games before engines, it was a nightmare. You were stuck modding something. I think my mic is giving up the ghost, Josh.
Oh, yeah. Oh, are you there?
Okay. Check.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. All right. Yeah. So like prior to that, like you were just modding or doing what you can, and like the idea of creating something with a fully functioning engine like that, like Unity or it's just a pipe dream. And now that they exist, these tools are in developers' hands to create fully featured games, multiplayer games, like basically any game you want to create now. It's just you have to be careful with now. I guess one of the canaries in the coal mines is what Mark Garcia is saying there is that Garcia said is that engines are proprietary software, so be careful what you use. And I think all Unity users believed they were safe and didn't believe that this would happen, right? And I'm sitting over here using Unreal. This won't happen to me as I'm an Unreal user, but I'm not sure, right? It could happen. They could change the TOS. Well, I highly doubt that because they're a private and they have Fortnite and they have actual revenue. They're actually generating profit while Unity was losing money, and so they were trying. This is their tactic to get money, right? It's not the same, but this is true. Is that when we're using engines that are proprietary software, we are kind of at the way. In that, on that note, that this is going to spur another thing. Like you said, something else will come into place, and we're going to see a lot more open software game engines coming out now. Like they know, okay, this is the time. There was a lot of people that were just waiting for Unity, the Goliaths, to get out of the way so they can step in and be like, okay, here's our open source game engine, right? And how they make money or whatever, that's up to them. But there's plenty of others that are going to step in. I don't know how much longer I'm going to last, Josh.
All right. Yeah, and I think that may be a good point to start to wrap things up for this topic. I'm thinking since we can't get Tomo or Max on, we may save the Game Jam recap maybe for next Saturday at this point. Or maybe do a recording with them.
Do a recording. All right. Did we get over an hour at least here?
Yeah, just about. Yeah, just a little over.
Okay.
So I guess let's do our final thoughts, and we'll wrap it up from there.
All right.
I guess for me, again, as someone who seen like parts and stuff popping over there on my little chat window, but for me, again, this is one of those situations where it just really feels like to go back to the original decision to do this. It really was just someone being very out of touch with what it means to earn money in the game industry and earn it through game dev. Not just, again, the all the tutorials, all the teachers, all the schools now that are going to be affected by this. And I just think, and to honor its comment, we were talking about that earlier, that like even if they take it all back and do, fingers crossed, no takesy backsies, we're never going to do it again. They have just Unity in the span of 24 hours, or we could probably say in the span of 30 minutes, completely destroyed a decade of brand recognition, brand loyalty, and brand equity. And it's not something that you can just build back. And I do love people saying, like, Unity having all this problem now. When John Riccitiello was the CEO of EA, he was doing like when EA was voted like the worst company in the United States to work for.
Yeah, I mean it's apropos and it follows. I was reading his first interview when he just became the CEO, and he basically admits to like not knowing anything, about software. He's like, I don't know. Interview me later when I know something. And clearly, I think I just said that all he knows is sink ships. So.
Mm-hmm. And I guess here's a question, or one of the final questions I want to ask everyone watching this live recorded. Do you think this will lead to a bunch of developers or a bunch of people who worked at Unity trying to make their own engine? As we saw with Blue Sky, kind of being like it rising from the ashes of Twitter. What will be anyone has a name for what will be the Unity competitor, the Unity, I guess, usurper?
Yeah, I bet you there's going to be a ton of Unity devs that were working in there because I follow, and they're so I mean, if you're working for engine, you're like highly, and so I know that like when they were having some of the layoffs stuff, they were still like pro Unity, and I believe that a lot of them would amass and get together and try and make some, like to try and right all the wrong. And Unity had so much promise. It did. I mean, now it's dead. Back now. Yeah, I don't know what went through there. How much was my mic cutting?
A little bit.
A little bit. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, they totally press the band back, regardless of how they try and work it back. Takes the backsies or this. There is no going back. There is no way that any larger studio would want to trust them. If you were a beginning indie, definitely don't trust them, right? There would be no reason to trust. They literally deleted from their TOS GitHub, right? Like, so you can't even go back and read. You can read the history, but they're delete. That definitely shows you that this is not a company that's working with your best interest in mind. So nobody is going to stay with them, right? I mean, there's like, I think his name is Kenny. He's a famous asset creator for it. He's like, there's no way. He's famous for making Unity. He said, there's no way that I can trust the company or go back and use them again. So I mean, and that's basically the feeling of any like dev out there that is fully in the field with skin in the game.
Yeah. And again, it is such a self-inflicted wound
Terrible.
that there's no real coming back from this. And yeah, like to Mike's comment, like there are ways of earning money that aren't as destructive. But at the other end of this, you have to understand any tool, any service like this when it comes to video games and game dev, it's not infinite. It will never be, infinitely scalable or infinitely revenue driven. And if you go into this with that mindset, you're just going to run that company into the ground.
Exactly.
And unfortunately, here's like my final, like very cynical point. It's not going. I don't think this is going to affect John Riccatello in any important way.
No, homie's yacht is just being gold plated as we speak right now. I mean, he is going to be great.
Mm-hmm. I bet he has that same deal that Bobby Kotick has. That to be exited or excised from the company, they have to pay him like a termination fee or something. Like that.
Yeah. Wouldn't it be nice when you, in order to be fired from a job, paid like millions of dollars? Wouldn't that be nice?
Mm-hmm. I would like to get millions of dollars every time I can make a video here.
Right.
All right, but I think that does it from me. Any points from you?
I do, but I'm afraid my mic's not going to handle it. Unity's trying to silence me, so
there we go.
So,
only Comcast does that to me. That's when they shut off my internet.
Right, yeah. Unity saw my tweets, so
the bad Sonic Unity. So who knows? Maybe next week we'll talk about the joys of that new game engine Unison that will be developed between now and
right. It's either going to be what Starfield or the new game Unison. Yes.
All right, everyone. So we are going to wrap things up here for this week's show. For next week, we will either be doing game jams or we can get the judges like sometime in the middle of the week. We may just do a recorded video and then post that. But if you have a suggestion for a future topic, let us know in the comments down below. Be sure to check out all my links up there, Discord, Patreon, buy all the books, subscribe for the monthly newsletter and all that. And I think that does it for me.
Yeah, and while Unity allows me to still talk, wishlist my games down below. Join the Game Wisdom Discord, buy Josh's books, and that's it for me. We'll see you next time.
Mm-hmm. We'll be back around 5:30 ET on Saturday for the next show. And everyone, have a great rest of your weekend. I will be having my COVID vaccine days tomorrow, so I won't be doing too much talking then. But I should be well rested for our next show. So, everyone, have a great rest of your weekend and come back for discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games.